It is Christmas time at Marriage Helper, and we are excited today to be celebrating with you. We know that many of our audience and our listeners, this might be a hard time because it's the pain of not having a great and happy marriage during the holidays. So we want to take the time during the next hour we have together in this live special that we're doing with YouTube and all of our followers to answer some questions, give some sentiments of hope for you to take throughout this season with you. And we're going to be doing some giveaways. And I'm joined by Dr. Joe Beam, who was supposed to dress as Santa, I just want to say.
Yes, I kind of got behind on my schedule today. And anytime I see that you're about to give something away, I always get highly nervous. Like, oh my goodness, what are we giving away now? But it's Christmas time. So
We're giving away something that no one can purchase it. It's something so special that only someone today is going to win it.
Well, good for us.
I'm super excited about it.
Okay,
so here's
good.
what's going to happen throughout the time together. We're going to be answering some questions, but there's also a link that we and our team is going to be putting in the chat. Just click that link if you want to be considered for one of our giveaways. It's just going to ask you your name, your email address, and it's only going to be used for us to choose who the winners are. You may also get some emails just with more information about Marriage Helper, some free things that we like to give away over the next couple of weeks of the Christmas holiday. But mainly we're using it today to pick who our winners are, and here's what we're giving away. So we're giving away 5 total things. We are giving away 4 different people. Each will win a toolkit of their choosing. And we have, I think, 11 or 12 total toolkits. These are valued just under $100 each. So you'll get lifetime access to whichever toolkit that you want.
Wow.
And then our big giveaway, one lucky recipient is going to get lifetime access to our membership.
Wow.
Which is thousands of dollars.
Thousands of dollars
and
for a lifetime.
Literally no one has this. No one has lifetime access.
And no one can buy it.
I don't even have lifetime access.
I don't either.
I know. And we don't sell it. It's not available. So one lucky winner will get lifetime access to membership, which is really exciting.
And the kinds of things that are in membership are?
Oh my goodness. Well, there's support calls that we have that our coaches host every single week, multiple times. We also have in our membership access to every single toolkit, present and future, that we offer inside of our Save My Marriage inside of the Save My Marriage membership. And we have a community in there. So people can go and they can connect with other people, encourage each other, and have relationships. Community is a better word. They can find relationships in there to help them strengthen in their stand and all of those things.
And for those of you who think Joe already knew all that, I don't. Actually, I work on the creative side of our business, which is about content and methodologies, and Kimberly heads up the whole company. So I really don't know what's in things like that. So I'm excited to hear that.
It's
Good.
amazing is what it is.
Awesome.
Yeah. So we're going to get started.
Let's do.
By answering some questions.
And where are the questions?
Our elf, Jake, is going to be bringing us some of the questions that we unwrap. So the questions are in the gifts.
Wow.
See?
Since I cannot see out of one eye until my next surgery.
Then I will be doing it, right?
Yeah.
If my kids were here. Also, you know that these bags are mostly reused from Mom. So half of them say to Eliana, which is my daughter's name. For
My wife is major on Christmas.
Major
We
on
once wanted the decorated yard of the entire subdivision, and we didn't even know there was a contest. That's how much she decorates for Christmas.
I remember that.
So
we also got a poinsettia from Papa John's one year.
Because we ordered
so much pizza. Okay. Here's the first question that we have today. How do I trust my husband again after an emotional affair and move on? He has answered all my questions, but gets angry, and we end up fighting when I bring it up because he wants us to move on and stop focusing on the past.
Okay. A couple of things about that, if I may. First of all, I'm going to make an assumption, and obviously I don't have you here to ask if I'm correct, but here's my assumption, that you are a person who processes things, that you tend to make decisions a little bit slowly because you want to process, think about it first, and that you're very much in need of talking things out. Whereas it sounds like your husband is more one of these fast-paced people. What I mean by that is that they tend not to process. Now, they can and they will, but they tend to make decisions and move on. And once they make a decision, they usually stick with it. Now, here's the balance that occurs with a couple like that. You need to be able to talk about it enough that you can process it out loud and feel good about it. But it has to be not so long, not so often. In other words, you can't go on months and months, or else the fast-paced person will finally give up. Like, there's no hope. You're never going to get over this. You're never going to forgive me. And so a lot of what we teach is an art as opposed to a direct science, in the sense that you need to have enough understanding of each other to know, okay, we can talk about it this long, and then we need to move on because that's what the other spouse needs. Now, if he was saying you can't process it at all, we'd have a different situation here we'd be talking about. But what I heard you say, you've talked about it a lot. You've asked a lot of questions, he's answered. So there does come a time when you need to move on. Now, if you need some help with that, maybe call one of our coaches or something. But at the very least, understand you can't keep processing, or it's going to drive him emotionally away from you. So pick a date, get it done by then, and then do your best to handle it after that. And if you need help, call us. We'll be glad to help.
Yeah, that's the one thing, the one question I would have back to this woman is she struggling moving forward because there hasn't been a process of taking accountability, rebuilding trust, all of those things that need to happen, which is its own process in and of itself that we can absolutely help with.
Do we have a toolkit about calculative trust?
We do have a trust toolkit.
Okay, so there's a toolkit about how to develop calculative trust. You say calculative trust. It's the process by which you rebuild trust. There's actually a process to go through where you can rebuild trust. And if you have access to that toolkit, look for the one on trust. If not, it might be the one you choose if you wind up winning one of our toolkits.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll go on to the next question that we have in this bag. My husband talks to me about divorce once every week since June. It hurts so bad. Mm-hmm. How do I handle it and not let it affect me to the point where I lose myself and can't stop crying? He has not filed yet because he wants an amicable divorce. We have 2 kids. What should I do?
Another one of our toolkits has to do with how to set boundaries. Now, we actually call them stops and cores, but many people call them boundaries. And there comes a time when you're going to have to put a boundary on this because it's obviously causing you distress. The more he talks about divorce, the more it will negatively affect his commitment to you. I'm not saying it's going to end it all immediately, but we know there's ample research out there that people who continue to bring up divorce, every time they do, it takes a little bit more out of them wanting to be in that relationship. So there will be a time when this has to stop. And unfortunately, you will have to be the one who stops it. Now, is there a way to do so? Absolutely. In the toolkit, I think I spent about an hour explaining all that. I believe I do, or more.
Which toolkit?
The Definitive Guide to Boundaries. Mm-hmm. And so I can't explain all that here that I do there, but I'm recommending there must be a time when this stops, but there's a way to stop it that won't increase hostility, but will actually help to decrease hostility. And we'd love to help you do it that way.
Yeah. We also have a couple of podcasts on boundaries. So for our listeners who maybe are also podcast listeners or our YouTube watchers, if you didn't know, we have a podcast. It's called Relationship Radio. And a lot of the episodes are also on YouTube. But if you are a podcast listener on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you listen to it, you can go and search through all of our old episodes. And there are several in there that can give a little more details on boundaries as well as the more in-depth toolkit that we have.
Good. Excellent. Wonderful. My heart is with you on that. I know that hurts. And that's why I strongly recommend that you find a way to stop it, but find a way that does not increase the hostility. But it's not good for you and it's not good for him.
No, absolutely not. Well, I think we are going to do our first giveaway now.
Oh, groovy.
Jason, who is our lucky winner of one toolkit?
All right, our first winner of the day is Marcia Gore.
Marcia.
So congratulations. You'll be receiving an email about how you can access your toolkit later today or early tomorrow.
Does it indicate what part of the world she's from?
It does not. It does not.
Okay.
We can make something up.
I would have loved to know that because we know people listen all over the world.
Yeah, for sure. They absolutely do. Let's go on to some more questions.
Any choice that you would like? This one looks good.
Thank you, Elf.
Merry Christmas.
That particular elf is Jake. He works in our marketing department. Jason, that you don't see, is in our marketing department, and those guys work really hard. Plus, Jake took one of my classes when I taught at Lipscomb University. I think I gave you an A, is that correct?
Passed it, I know. The second time around, yes.
Did you give him an A or did he earn the A?
Oh, he had to have earned it.
Because I don't even know if I got an A in his class.
You actually did.
I did.
I think I did. Who can say, really?
Who can say? Who even knows? Here's the next question that we have. My husband indicated that he does not know if he wants to continue with this marriage, scared to make the wrong decision. I don't know how to set boundaries for me and the children and stay emotionally strong to work on my pies and not pull him away. What should I do? This is very similar to the last question.
Yes, but a little bit different in the sense that he apparently has not yet made a decision. He's trying to think this through. We actually have what we call a reconciliation. We call it the exploring reconciliation model. And that particular model is designed to help you and your husband work through several things. And it has 5 steps. And by the time you get to the 4th step, he will know, or at least we have a very good idea about whether he wants to stay in the relationship or not stay in the relationship. But it's a very logical process that leads you from one step to the next, to the next, to the next. So you know what to talk about, what to expect, what doesn't need to be talked about now, what compromises to make, if any, so that you can make a decision. And by the time you get to step 4 of that process, if he decides to leave, at least he'll know exactly what he's leaving. But it's really interesting that quite often when people get to that point, they actually see how they could put it back together in the process to do so. So it's called Exploring Reconciliation. Is that also a toolkit?
It is, but it's in a different membership.
Okay, so it's not in that membership. Okay, so they can't get to that directly.
Right. Well, the idea is when a lot of what we do at Marriage Helper, we really want to work with the couple and get them to a point where both spouses can be more open to exploring reconciliation. So starting with our workshop and then going into exploring reconciliation together as a couple after that, which is very different than what a lot of counselors do, which is discernment counseling, where they kind of start with, well, should you stay together or not? And let's do a controlled separation.
And we think there's not just think, we've proven there's a much, much better way than that. So if they were interested in that, it would be a byproduct or an after product of.
Yeah, it's part of the aftercare that we provide after coming to one of our workshops, for sure.
Okay. And if you're thinking, well, I don't know if my spouse can go to the workshop with me, we actually have some videos, don't we, helping you to help figure out how to ask your spouse in a way that doesn't offend them, doesn't manipulate them, but helps them come to a decision as to whether to come to the workshop or not. Those are available, right? But somebody needs to call one of our
intake specialists. Yeah, absolutely. So we have a whole team of people here at Marriage Helper who speak to you, that you can call, you can tell them about what's going on in your marriage. They're not coaches, but they will help you identify where the best starting place is for you. We call them our intake specialists. And there's a link that we'll be putting in the chat of how you can book a call, a completely free call with one of our intake specialists to see how Marriage Helper can help you and what that process looks like, and actually see how it can help your specific situation.
Well, so far I feel like I'm doing a commercial. I don't want to do a commercial. I want to actually give some substantive answers.
Yeah, let's do it. It's hard because we've gone so in depth in many of our toolkits about a lot of these situations.
Yeah.
But let's answer another question.
Let's get the big one.
It's a big one. 2 Arrow, my son. Made this question. Not the question necessarily, but the bag, I'm sure was.
Yeah, Aaron's 6. He's not yet married.
He's not yet. Not quite. Although.
He has a lot of little girlfriends.
Oh, last week I was putting him to bed, and I asked him something about his day, and he said, well, a little girl at school is going to kiss me tomorrow. And I said, really? And he said, yeah, we're trying to figure out the best place to do it. And he was like, we don't want it to be like, I can't remember. He said, but I think it's going to be the basketball court. I'm like, all right.
6 years old.
The basketball
court. But he is as cute as you can imagine.
Yes, yes. Our next question. My husband sometimes refuses sex and says that he's sorry, but it's growing more common and seems like we rarely have sex anymore. He works very hard in his office all day and just says that he doesn't have the energy. What can I do? Well, this is a perfect question for you. As a sexologist. As a sexologist, you would know the answer.
Where I'm going to start is going to sound very strange. When women go through depression, they tend to feel a great deal of anxiety and fear. When men go through depression, they tend to feel a lack of interest in anything. They feel fatigued. They feel too tired to do anything. Now, each one can be the other. In other words, some men do it that way, some women do it that way. But men, depression will most often demonstrate itself as fatigue and lack of interest. And so if you have a male, now you didn't indicate what age he is. There is an age where that the sex drive, the libido, does tend to decrease some. But saying he's always too tired, it either means he's going through some kind of depression himself and needs to get some help for that, or it could mean there's something going on in your relationship that you're not aware of. Now, not necessarily meaning another woman. It could mean that, but not necessarily meaning that. It could mean that there's some problem that he's having in the relationship with you that you're not yet aware of. Either way, is this something that can be fixed? Absolutely. Is it something that should be fixed? Absolutely. Because it's healthy for us physically, intellectually, emotionally, and spiritually to be sexually active with our spouses. Now, if you think it might be depression, then you can go online and find a thing called the PHQ-9. Now, it's not a diagnostic tool. It's a screening tool. You can find it for free. If you go on some place where they want to get your email address to get it or want to charge you to get it, skip. You can find it for free. PHQ stands for Public Health Questionnaire. And the 9 means there's 9 questions there. Now, if your husband will answer them accurately, in other words, honestly for himself, then they'll tell you what the score means and what you should do. If he is depressed, go see, or at least convince him if you can, to go see the primary doc, well, whoever he or she is. And it could be just a little bit of medicine can help even that out, particularly in a stressful period like the holidays. If it's worse than that, if it's like very much depressed or what was called clinically depressed, then you might want to just find a counselor to help him talk it out in addition to the medicine. If there is no depression, if his honest answers indicate that that's not there or it's very mild, then I would suggest you start paying attention to how he reacts to whatever you say or do. Anytime he reacts negatively, begin to make a note. And after a while, you'll see a pattern. Oh, he's reacting negatively to this. At the same time, write down the positives. And when you see him reacting positively to something, you do, oh, here's my list of my pattern. I'm beginning to see he reacts positively to that. Finally, understand this. Unless this has been long-term, in other words, if it's relatively short-lived, like only going on a couple of months, then it could just be seasonal because this is a very stressful time of the year. And so when we look at these kinds of things, I could actually, if I were talking to you live, I would ask you some questions. But understand that this is something that can be fixed, should be fixed, but you're going to need to do a little research. So PHQ-9 is where I suggest you start, if he will honestly answer it. And you may have to ask him to answer it on his own without you seeing the scores for him to honestly answer it. Otherwise, do those lists.
Speaking of depression and how it presents in males, I have my own question. So a little bit of an aside. Have you been aware, I recently just learned this, that sometimes depression can present in men as more aggressive or more like they have more anger, more aggression instead of
irritability.
Irritability.
Yeah, and so it's that's how I left that one out. I should have said it. So it's more fatigued, a lot less interest in things that used to interest them, and increased irritability. Absolutely, those are typically the way that men demonstrate depression.
Yeah, great. PHQ-9 is a great place to start. All right, well, we're going to do another giveaway before we answer a couple of more questions. So our next winner for a free toolkit of their choosing is
Mary Wade.
Mary Wade. Congratulations.
It's a lovely name, and we still don't know what part of the world she is in.
I think she's Southern.
Sounds
Maybe
Southern.
so.
No, there'd be a middle name if she was Southern.
Oh, Mary Jane.
Yeah, Mary Jane
Yeah,
Wade.
Mary Jo. Yeah. Merry Christmas, Wade.
I actually know a Merry Christmas last name.
Really?
Yeah, I really do.
That's Fantastic. Well, congratulations, Mary. Fantastic. All right, next question. What is the most important aspect of pies, and what makes it the most important?
You ought to answer this.
I would love to answer this one. So, for our listeners who maybe are new and don't understand what pies is, and maybe you're just in the Christmas mindset and thinking chocolate or pecan, while delicious, not the type of pies we're talking about. When we talk about pies, we're talking about the 4 areas of attraction: physical, intellectual, emotional, and spiritual. And I get this question a lot. And in fact, just a couple of weeks ago, I was speaking in Naples, Florida at a real estate event for realtors and was talking about how to fall in love and how to become more attractive. And of course, one of the questions that they asked was, well, which is the most important aspect of pies? Actually, I asked the audience that question after teaching them about each aspect of the pies. And lots of the times, so just as a quick overview for people who may not know, physical is looking and feeling the best for your age and situation in life. Intellectual attraction is about being able to connect and talk to the other person. You have shared interests and shared hobbies enough that you enjoy spending time together and enjoy conversations. Emotional attraction is all about evoking positive emotions within the other person and that person within you. And spiritual attraction is about sharing your core values, your beliefs and values, and having a similar set of beliefs and values with each other. And a lot of times people will say, well, it's spiritual, right? Especially people who come from a religious background. A lot of times they'll say that's the most important one. But when you actually look at each of these areas, someone could have really strong beliefs and values, be the smartest person in the room, be the most physically attractive person in the room, but if they treat you like crap, you're not going to want to be around
Did we
them.
say that word on the island?
Well, I did.
Okay. Right.
You know, they said it on Christmas Vacation, didn't they?
Probably said worse than that.
Probably so. So emotional attraction is the most important part of the pies because it's the part that can pull someone closer to you or can push them further away.
Yeah. In the research we have done and looked at similar research by others, not exactly the same, physical attraction is the most important only if you're looking for a short-term relationship. And so I've actually done polls online where I put up these things, described them, and said, which one do you want most for your long-term relationship? Mm-hmm. Emotion comes out far above everything else.
Yeah. Well, it's also when we just think of ourselves, and if you just think of personal development and health and wellness, so many times people will focus a lot of time and energy on their nutrition, on their workout plans, on getting a PhD or a JD or, continuing their education or volunteering, serving, going to church a certain amount of times a week. Mm-hmm. But at the end of it all, is any of that worth it if the relationships in your life are what is sacrificed in the process?
Exactly. And we have both known people who are super religious and mean.
Yeah.
Just mean.
Yeah.
And nobody wants to live with them.
No. They know a lot.
They know a lot. They just not are applying it in their own lives and relationships.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So the most important part is emotional. And one way that you can practice this over the holiday season, this is a perfect time to focus on emotional attraction with your kids, with your husband, with your wife, with your coworkers. And it's really by beginning to just ask yourself the question, what is something I can do that would evoke a positive emotion within this person over the holiday season?
Yeah. And if it doesn't work, don't freak out. Figure out what will work.
Yeah. Sometimes you just have to ask.
Yeah. And if they'll tell you, that works really well.
Absolutely. Let's go to some more questions. We got a Santa bag.
Santa bag.
Thank you, sir.
All right. And also, just so everyone remembers, or if you're just joining, we are doing giveaways. So be sure to fill out the form that we're posting in the chat so that you can be entered to win. We're giving away 2 more toolkits of someone's choosing to one lucky winner each. And then the lifetime of membership is still to come. I am eager to see who that winner is going to be. Here's our next question.
I'm hoping it's me.
I
I
hope it's you too.
Okay, good.
When confronted to handle hurtful issues, my husband would get angry at me and a fight would happen. I would shut down and the conversation would end, leaving me to be unable to work through the hurt. I became bitter and my trust diminished. What are your suggestions on how we can have better communication?
Help me understand the first part of that.
It was written in past tense. So let me just try and read it in a different tense. When I confront my husband with hurtful issues, he would get angry at me and we would fight. Therefore, I would shut down and then the conversation would just end, which left me unable to work through what I was feeling and the hurt that I felt. We never actually handled the hurtful issue. That made me become bitter and I lost trust in my husband. What are your suggestions on how we can have better communication in the future?
Okay. Well, you're finishing up your PhD in psychology, so let me ask you a couple of questions about this.
Okay.
What is the typical human reaction when a person is confronted?
Defense.
Defensiveness. And defensiveness does not deal with the issue.
No.
It deals with, you hurt my feelings by saying that. Now I'm going to hurt your feelings in return. And they go into what we call the dance.
Yeah.
Can you explain the dance to them?
Well, it's self-protection modes on both parts. So you come and accuse me of something, or at least it feels that way. My reaction is going to be, I didn't do that, but look at what you did, because I'm trying to protect myself, which you then are likely to look at that and say, oh, no, I didn't do that. But what about when you, and then you just get, unless there is a very emotionally stable, high, emotionally intelligent person who can back themselves out of that situation, which is nearly impossible to do, you're just going to continue in that downward spiral.
Okay. So think of three different ways to do the same thing. One is to say, you hurt me. Mm-hmm. The other person is probably going to get defensive unless, as you said, you've got a really good relationship already where they're going to go, how?
Right.
But otherwise, it's going to be, you're attacking me, I'm going to defend myself. The second way to do it is to say, I'm hurt. Okay? Then that person's less likely to become defensive unless you somehow imply it's their fault that you're hurt. Or even the third way is, I want to tell you how I feel. When that happened, I felt hurt. And that way is probably the best way of all, because now you're talking totally in realm of you, totally in terms of what you feel. And so while you do say it happened when you did that, you're not attacking. You're explaining, this is what I feel. Now, this is what they teach people in counseling right off the bat, right? It's, what do they call it? The I.
I statements, using I statements. Mm-hmm. Right.
And so I would suggest, first of all, the first thing you do is that you change the way you confront. Should you be able to tell him? Absolutely. But if it's confrontational, you already know what's going to happen. You see the pattern. That's not going to change. And another suggestion is try not to be continually bringing up your pain or hurt, because after a while, the other person just begins to feel, there's nothing I can do. There's nothing I can do. Whatever I say, et cetera, you're going to react negatively to. And so there is a time and place, and you should be able to do it, but you have to use some wisdom here. Speak from your own side, not what they did, and don't do it so often that they just finally give up.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you said, just to reiterate and highlight it, if the relationship is already in turmoil, then tread lightly to start with, because you have to regain that stability to your communication and to just your relationship to be able to handle talking about some of these harder issues.
Oh, and one other aspect of that, if there's a third party present, whether it's a friend, a family member, particularly a child, or even a counselor or therapist, don't think that you can tell the therapist in such a way. In other words, if you still say to the therapist, he's a jerk, let me tell you what he did, even if you don't say it to him directly, it's still an attack. And if you say that in front of other people, people that they genuinely care about, like their children or their friends or et cetera, it's a much more massive attack, and they're going to become much more defensive, even if they don't do it on the spot.
Right. It's embarrassing.
Exactly.
And it erodes trust. And that's really the bottom line of it. It's reestablishing trusting each other in your communication and how you can talk about issues.
Intimacy has to do with being able to be open, honest, transparent, vulnerable. And when you are doing what you described, where you get into that dance, there's no intimacy in that, because neither one of you is going to be open and transparent and vulnerable. So what you want to do is to recreate it that way. How can we be open to each other without being afraid of the other person's reaction? I apologize for my voice. Is it getting even worse?
No.
Allergy time of the year for me. Sorry about that.
I apologize for my cough. but I don't know what else to do.
Sometimes nature rules.
Yeah, that's right. Here we are. All right, we are at our third giveaway of a toolkit. Jason, who's our lucky winner?
Danielle Ramirez.
Danielle. We got a lot of women.
I know.
It's all women. You know?
Luck of the draw.
No, it's not. It's the fact that women are what's the saying? Early bird gets the worm or whatever.
The early worm fights the bird.
The early worm fights the bird. That's not the saying.
It was like when I taught my class at Lipscomb on human sexuality. Now, it's a Christian university, and you teach a class on human sexuality, it takes like 3.7 seconds for it to fill up. And the women were much faster at that than the men.
Yeah, we know how to get what we want.
And so 75% of the people in my class would be female just because they signed up so much faster than the men did.
Yeah, that absolutely doesn't shock me in the slightest. Here's our next question. How can I love my wife when she has told me that she doesn't want to be loved by me? She has been involved in an extramarital, limerent, emotional relationship. She does not want a divorce because of our young boys. The only thing she wants from me is to be left alone.
That's pretty typical, don't you think?
In a limerent relationship. Yeah.
Absolutely. And the reason she doesn't want you to love her or demonstrate love to her is because of the fact that it enhances guilt. Like, I know what I'm doing is not right. You say, what makes you think she thinks it's not right? Because she's saying for the children. That's what tells me that she thinks it's not right. And therefore, when you do loving things, we've heard it from everything from, well, I'm taking care of myself physically, and my spouse is resenting it. Or I'm taking care of myself intellectually, blah, 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 my spouse resents it. Why are they resenting it? Because you're messing up their justification. You see, in their mind, they have been able to come to the conclusion that their emotions for the other person are valid, and therefore they should not have those kind of emotions toward you. Therefore, their mind looks for reasons to justify the fact that they shouldn't love you. Now, when you do things that are inconsistent with that mental picture that they're holding of you, it aggravates them because now it's messing up their plan. And so her reaction, is it honest? Yeah, I'm sure that's quite honestly what she feels. Should you stop loving her? No. But anything that you lovingly do for her that evokes a negative emotion is not getting you anywhere. Therefore, if you open the car door for her and she gets angry that you do, just say to her, hey, I love opening the car door for you, willing to start again anytime you wish, but I don't want to do anything to aggravate you. And so some things you'll have to continue to do because they're just right and good. But things like, that evoked a negative emotion, I don't have to do that. That evoked a negative emotion, I don't have to do that, because there's no value in perpetuating her looking for things about you not to be happy with. Am I making sense with that, Kimberly, or am I straying too far?
So one of the things that we sometimes hear and that maybe some other people teach is you should continue to tell your spouse that you love them because it's important for you to do, because they need to hear from you every day. That's going to be part of what, I don't know, gets them to end their affair or whatever, which isn't true. But that's part of what you're saying. If, I might feel very convicted. Well, I want to continue to tell my husband I love him every day because I want him to know that when he's in the middle of his affair. But what you're saying is if that is what is leading him to be...
If it's evoking negative emotions...
then don't do it. There's no purpose to do it.
No, back when I was young, when I was in ministry, I remember a death took place in our little church. I mean, it was a little church. And I went to the home. And because I was so young and naive, I didn't know what to say. So I just sat there. And it turned out to be the best thing I could have done. Nobody had taught me that yet. Because whatever I would have said would have come across in a way that would make them angry, like, well, they're so much better off now, but I want them here.
Right.
Or whatever. My God needed another angel, but I needed them. And so by not having the knowledge of what to say and being quiet, I learned that you don't have to say things, that sometimes just being there and being you is all that you need to do for a while.
Another common question we get in regards to this is, should I continue to wear my wedding ring?
Well, obviously that's a matter of choice. And I don't have a firm answer for that, do you?
Like, would it be so it's more so my spouse has told me they don't want me to, but I am married and I want to keep wearing it. So would it be even if it's evoking a positive or a negative emotion, is it one of those ones where it's worth continuing to do it because it's a personal choice?
But that has to be why it's not a personal choice. If it's to annoy the other person, it's a bad personal choice. If it's because of the fact that you want to remind yourself, hey, I'm in this, I hope we make it out. But even then, I think I would say to my spouse, I understand that you don't want me to wear this ring, but in my heart, we're still married, so please don't be offended that this just represents what I feel in my heart.
Yeah. So where is the hope for the person watching or listening who their spouse over the Christmas holidays is in a limerent affair and isn't wanting to be a part of the family celebrations and all of those things?
Well, even when I was in that limerent affair many, many years ago where I divorced your mother and left your sisters, you weren't alive yet at that time, I still came around for the holidays. So I think some people in limerence still will because of the obligation they feel. On the other hand, if your spouse is doing things, saying things, or not doing things like coming to the Christmas party, then understand that limerence has a shelf life. It's going to end at some point. And note that while this person may be in intense limerence right now, they're not always going to be. Now, I can't predict exactly what they're going to do, but I can predict this. And so far, I've been doing this 30 years, I've never missed yet. Limerence ends. It always ends. So take hope in that the person that you loved, the person that you married, is still in there. He or she is being superseded at the moment by this strong emotional thing called limerence that's even messing up the brain chemicals. But that good person's still in there, and there is hope. There's hope that you will see that good person again.
I love that. Let's answer some more questions. The joy bag, very fitting to Kimberly.
You knew that. You wrapped your own presents?
Do I wrap my own presents? No. I probably don't wait until Christmas to use them. I just get them. All right, let's answer the first one. I have been working on my pies, good for you, which I feel has helped our marriage, but would love for my wife to join in. How do I convince her to do so without her feeling judged or guilty? A great way to encourage your spouse to work on their pies with you is by simply inviting them into doing some of the things that you're doing. So if you are going to a new gym and then perhaps it's just an invitation, hey, do you want us to go and do this together? Or if you like hiking or whatever it is, or whatever your spouse may enjoy doing that is physical, for example, that you can both begin to do together, then try and find that compromise. Try and find something both of you can enjoy, and then create the opportunities for you both to do it together.
So what if they don't want to do it with you? Can you still encourage them the same way? Like, why don't you check out this gym? Right now, I know you're not comfortable going with me, but you might like to go there.
Yeah.
Check it out. Would that be okay?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be different for every person in every situation. Some people might take that personally, depending on, especially if it's a woman, I mean, either gender, who is already very self-conscious about weight or anything like that, then a suggestion like that could probably do more harm than good.
In that case, it's going to sound like a criteria. You have to do this for me to love you.
Exactly. And so this is a very common question because a lot of people will begin working on their pies, they begin feeling better, and then they begin to realize, oh, there's these areas that I wish my spouse would work on that would help me become more attracted to them again. So it's that balance of where to start. But there's a couple of things I would say here. Remember that physical isn't the most important part. And so when thinking about the things you can do together, it can also be an easier entry point to focus on emotional.
Absolutely.
So what are the things you can do together that will evoke great emotions within the two of you? So going on date nights, doing new things when you go on date nights. So maybe it's trying a cooking class or doing dance classes or going to a new restaurant, doing things where you can have new experiences.
Or even, I heard this movie is funny, let's go see it.
Yeah.
Because that humor will evoke positive
Absolutely.
emotions.
It's those getting out of your routines, getting in new environments, and doing things that are more lighthearted that can get you to connect together can be a great place to start. And then over time, that can evolve into maybe you take a Spanish class together. Maybe you begin to go on hikes together. And here's the other key that I love to remind people about is the best thing that you can do is work on your pies for yourself first and
Yes,
foremost.
yes.
And then it can become an inspiration to other people in your life as long as you don't force it down their throat.
Amen. Amen.
So that's the balance you have to find. Working on yourself, continuing to be open-handed and invite people along to do certain things with you, especially things you know they would enjoy doing, but don't do it to where you become one of those people that never shuts up about it.
Right.
They feel like they have to do it to be loved, all of those things.
Like, there's a constant joke on the internet. How can you tell a person's a vegan? They'll tell you. That
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I'm not against vegans, so misunderstand. I'm just saying don't keep going about it.
Yeah, exactly. All right, yes. So we'll go into the next question. Is smart, I read the first sentence and it was not, I thought it said, is smart contact legally maintained by Marriage Helper, but that's not what it says.
Good.
Although it is true. We do own the copyright and trademark of Smart Contact. Is Smart Contact generally harder to maintain while my husband is in limerence and living with his LO since January 2022? We made a tiny bit of progress between July and September of that year, 2022, just returning messages and a few looks on the rare occasion I saw him, but he has since gone cold. So we're basically talking about someone who hasn't spoken in over a year.
But isn't smart contact smart with anybody? What I'm saying is anybody that you have a relationship with that for whatever reason is not happy or not happy with themselves, not happy with you, smart contact is always applicable. Or am I wrong?
I mean, I think you're right. But of course,
So even if a
probably
spouse does not have any
probably
contact with you
biased.
at all, if he or she does contact you, we would say still practice smart contact because
Right.
you're demonstrating respect.
yeah, I think well, I don't know. I'm having to make an assumption here because the question is smart contact generally harder to maintain while my husband is in limerence and living with his LO for the past basically 2 years now? So that could be interpreted as, is it harder to maintain, meaning they're just not talking to me? Or is it harder for me to want to practice it?
So answer both.
Well, okay. Clearly, if you haven't talked in 2 years, for the most part, then just communication in general is going to be harder for several of the reasons that you talked about earlier. When someone's in limerence, they tend to remove the things from their life that are causing them guilt and shame. So yes, it absolutely makes it more difficult. And if you're not talking at all and you don't have kids or shared business items together, then it can be difficult to find those opportunities to reach out. Now, the second part of it is it harder to maintain it meaning, is it harder for me to actually get emotionally grounded and respond in the correct way when he talks to me? Well, that depends on how much intentionality a person puts into it.
Yeah, but the value in still doing it. Limerence has a shelf life.
Yeah.
At some point, that limerence is going to end. Now, if the communication that you do with your spouse, you're happy with your spouse, even if it's not a lot, can still affect what they do when that limerence finally ends. So my wife Alice, your mother, because we didn't know all this stuff back then, you understand, the communication she had with me for a long time was actually very negative toward me, not what we would call smart contact at all. So that when finally the limerence affair ended, rather than coming back to Alice, I just went off and lived a different kind of lifestyle because I still associated negative emotions with Alice. With time, she, on herself, because she wasn't having help, figured out that that was not wise and began to be much more positive. She actually practiced smart contact without knowing what smart contact was, which eventually led me back to her because the negative emotions began to be replaced with positive emotions. So what we're saying is, yes, when you're hurt, it's more difficult to be that stable to do smart contact. But is it still of great value? Yes. Well, what if they never come back? Still a great value because it helps you become even better as a person.
Yeah, that's right. I agree. We're going to do another giveaway. So this is the last of our 4 toolkits giveaway. And then we're going to answer some more questions before we do our big grand prize drawing. Jason, who is one of the recipients of a toolkit?
I hope I don't butcher this last name, but it is Kelly Schwartfigure.
Spell that for me.
SCHWART figure. FIGURE.
Schwartzfigure. Interesting name. I would love to know the ethnic origin of that. Excellent. Well, and first name again?
Kelly.
Kelly.
Congratulations, Kelly.
Yes, congratulations.
You left. Which one?
Let's do the small one,
Okay.
the truck. Super cute. Thank you, Jake. Right. This question. How do I know when to start the transition from smart contact into the next phase of rebuilding our relationship? Well, that was opportune timing.
I'm not sure I understand what she means or he means.
So I don't know if this person's watched the Smart Contact Toolkit yet, but this is actually, we don't say it this way, but this is something we talk about in that toolkit. It's basically, how do I know when to start going into becoming more flirty, becoming more intimate in the smart contact process, as opposed to just managing the non-emotional business
I see.
items together?
What's the answer?
After consistent, appropriate response to regular smart contact.
Exactly. As we say a lot, what we teach is more of an art than a science. Mm-hmm. I mean, the hard sciences are this much hydrogen, that much oxygen makes water. That's hard science. We're in what's called a soft science. Just like medicine, believe it or not, it's a soft science. The penicillin that cures you might kill me. And so we look at this and go, you pay attention. You start watching their responses. And if the other person is responding positively, be very careful, then you can just go another inch further. Just take your time. And if they react negatively, back up an inch. But it doesn't mean it's all over. It just means that it's a process of learning anew how to communicate with each other.
Right, right. Because that's the core of smart contact. It's to rebuild the foundation of the way you communicate in your relationship so that you can, for lack of a better term, trust each other in your communication and then continue to build upon it. So it's how to restart becoming friends again, how to regain intimacy, how to do all of those things, but it's by trusting that the other person is going to respond to you in a respectful way.
Yeah. So primarily smart contact is a way of removing pushes, a way of removing causing negative emotions, and which will lead to be able to talk to each other with pulls, creating positive emotions.
Yeah, exactly. And you have to have both. You have to have
But
both.
take your time. Do the first one first. Stop doing the negatives until finally it can be okay to do the positives.
Yeah, that's great. All right, we have one more bag of questions. We got through them all. Almost. I won't speak too soon. I never know how many are in these big bags. There's 2. All right. This next question is, we have been separated almost 12 months. He still wants a divorce. Smart contact has helped improve things.
Good.
Do I continue building emotional connection after he divorces me, or should I try a bit of no contact? Dun, dun, dun.
The premise of no contact is that because you have no contact, the other person winds up wanting you more. If you are in a limerent relationship, no contact will work. It'll actually cause the other person to want you more. But in a situation like a marriage where there's already some kind of difficulties going on, one person wanting out, no contact basically gives them what they want. Don't call me. Okay, you don't call them. Good. And so we are not fans of no contact. We are fans of smart contact. We think that no contact basically works on the premise of manipulation. I'm going to try to manipulate you into missing me or missing your children because I'm not going to let you have any contact with me or contact with my children, or at least I'm not going to have them initiate contact with you or me either. And therefore, we're going to manipulate you into missing us where you contact us back. I've always said this, still believe it to the core of my being. If you have to manipulate somebody to come back, what do you do to keep them? Continue to manipulate them? And so I would not suggest that. Now, when you say after the divorce, well, I hope the divorce doesn't happen, of course. But remember that not just in my story, but in many people that we work with, Alice and I were divorced for 3 years. She was already dating somebody else when I finally asked her if she would be willing to take me back. And she had to think about it quite a bit, as a matter of fact, as you would understand. And finally she did. And so she took me back because she kept doing the right things after the divorce, such as stopping the negative contact, et cetera, that kind of thing. And so I'm of the belief that the divorce does not mean it's over. Now, I realize that's how it feels, and I realize it's a terrible thing, and I realize it causes lots of pain financially, emotionally, relationally. But we've had people remarry after 5 or 6 years that we have to work with. 10 years, that's right, one couple, 10 years. And so obviously we don't look at it the same way you do because we're not in the pain that you're in. But personally, I don't see divorce as the absolute end. It may be, but it may not be.
Was there ever a time where mom ignored you?
No.
It's not her character.
Not her character at all.
No, I couldn't imagine that. But the other thing that is, the person said, smart contact has worked. It has helped. So why would you stop doing what's helping to do something that's just going to lead the other person to say, well, because no contact is a form, not just manipulation, but it also tries to be a form of punishment. And that's the intention behind it. I'm going to withhold something from you so that you will miss me and see what you're missing out on. And I can't comprehend how people think that this works.
Well, because every once in a while, somebody does get to missing them and calls back and they say, see, it works. 1 out of 100?
But also, continue following those people. What happens after they get back together?
Exactly. I'm with you right there.
Right.
It's so much healthier to not try to manipulate the other person.
Exactly.
To try to interact in a way with them that decreases pushes, increases pulls, decreases evoking negative emotions, increases evoking positive emotions.
That's, generally a principle we work
and
from
you
at
can
Marriage
do
Helper.
that for the rest of your life. And it's not manipulation. It's good relationships.
Exactly. We try not to use manipulation.
Are you sure we have time for another question before the final giveaway?
We have time for one more.
Okay.
I cheated on my wife and she found out. I tried to hide it and I'm truly ashamed and sorry for what I did. Now that she knows about it, hold on. I think we're missing communication or punctuation. I tried to hide it and I'm truly ashamed and sorry for what I did. But now that she knows about it, she wants out of the marriage. I want to save it, but I don't know where to start.
Okay. It's a tough situation. And she may well proceed with the divorce. That's always possible. What's happening is that she feels, as you know, betrayed. And betrayal is a violation of trust. Anger comes from a violation of trust. It comes from a violation of expectations, those kinds of things. And to find out that what she thought was true was actually deceiving because something else was true. You understand that deep emotional hurt. But does that necessarily mean it's over? No. But it very much means you cannot push this. If you try to push it and she's already upset with you and thinking that you're will deceive her, that won't work. Now, there is a process to put it back together, but first of all, you're going to have to give her a little bit of time. Secondly, if you're a praying person, pray that she doesn't get influenced by negative people who want to take out their hurt on you. And another thing I would suggest then is, as opportunity arises, again with smart contact, you Do whatever you can to evoke positive emotions, but without pushing, and certainly without demanding forgiveness, without demanding reconciliation, because she has a right to be hurt. There's actually a process. Do we have a toolkit on forgiveness?
No.
Well, we talk about forgiveness sometimes on these podcasts, and if you come to the workshop, obviously, we can help you with learning how to forgive, and her learning how to forgive. And we've had people who said that they would never forgive under any circumstance, who are now happily married and doing quite well together.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those difficult situations, but it's one that we commonly see in our workshops and in the people that we have worked with and been able to help them immensely.
But don't demand, don't push.
Yeah,
You have to let them go through a grief process.
right. For sure. For sure. Hope that is helpful. I hope all of the questions that we've been answering today have been helpful and been giving hope to each and every one of you, especially the ones that are more pertinent to your specific situation. And Joe, now is the time for the never before released or given lifetime membership access.
I don't know how to do a drum roll, and I didn't bring my trumpet. Okay.
And the winner is Mindy Gingerich.
Mindy Gingerich, congratulations.
You have something nobody else on planet Earth has at this point.
No
So
one.
congratulations to you.
That's awesome. We're excited to see you inside of the membership and welcome you in there for sure.
If we can help you, Kimberly, what do they do if they want to know more about how we can, whatever we can do for them?
Yeah, the best place to start is by talking to one of our intake specialists. They are a team of people who have calendar space available on a daily basis. It books up, but they are available on a daily basis to talk to you, see an overview of what your situation is and how we can help. And you can book one of those appointments with our intake specialist completely free by going to marriagehhelper.com/book now, BOOKNOW, marriagehelper.com/book now. There's also a link in the chat. There will be a link in the show notes for people who are watching this afterwards. That's the best place to get started.
So they're not counselors, therapists, or coaches.
Nope.
So what do they do?
Well, they're going to ask you some questions. What's going on? What's the goal you have? What's the outcome you want? And where are you stuck? And then what does it look like to possibly work with Marriage Helper and what we offer to get you to that goal that you're looking for?
And if we don't know how to help, we'll tell them that, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
For sure. They are also able to work with each person on more of an individual basis so that people can understand, when getting started, the timeline, the investment cost, and work to make sure every person that we can serve as many people as possible with what we do.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Merry Christmas to every one of you.
Merry Christmas.
And we are sorry for whatever pain you're in. But remember, there are also many things to be thankful for, many things to appreciate, many things to be happy about. So maybe for the next couple of weeks, rather than ruminating on the bad, try to focus on the good as best you can. Your life is not over. Your happiness is not over. Your future can still be good.
There is always hope.
Always hope.
Merry Christmas.